Another week of sports has gone by, and we're here to talk about it on Huddle Up here at Northwest Access TV. Paul, alongside me is Dustin. Good morning, sir.
How are you doing today?
Good. How was your trip to D.C.?
It was pretty nice. It was a nice little quick trip. Glad I took it. Glad to be back talking sports, though. Lots
too bad
to
there
talk about
there was no sports going on while you were down there.
Well, actually, I almost went to a Georgetown Hoyas game that Thursday night because tickets were cheap.
Sports.
But hey, they are undefeated still.
Okay, sorry, my bad, Georgetown.
I almost went, but I ended up having to go do something else. So no, I got.
I think you made the right decision.
I got a 2-day stretch where there were pretty much no sports going on in D.C., which is
well, that's fine too, though, because then you didn't have to worry about, missing anything here.
Yeah, pretty much.
So you get to go to D.C., you get to enjoy nothing really going on. So that's fine. What's wrong with that? We had a weird. I guess I shouldn't say a weird week. You had a bad week last week when it came to NFL picks, and JT is slowly starting to creep his way up.
I should say actually, I went 9-7.
You went 9-7. He went 13-3.
All right.
So he's one pick behind.
He had a good week.
In the season total, he's one pick behind you. I feel like he should have to go at least 10 picks ahead of you in order to make up for really what he did, not picking for the first 2 weeks of the season. But we gave him we had a pretty good handicap.
Yeah, we gave him a very
season.
Nice little asterisk.
Right,
to put
asterisk
aside.
next to it, right. And I'm still ahead by about 10 picks ahead of you guys.
10 games now?
Yeah, 64%. Bryce had a bad week last week as well, 7-9.
Yeah,
He's
Bryce
now
week
at
below 500.
68% for the season.
I won above 500, so.
Well, nothing's going to happen between Bryce and I this week because we actually have the same picks, so we'll see.
Oh, you picked the same exact game?
He had picked his, and I had picked mine actually on Monday, or Tuesday, so I picked all my picks and everything then, and when he sent them to me, they do the exact same thing. Lots of things going on around the NFL. Lots of injuries. There's a lot of
everybody's dead.
A lot of the Twitter game has been very strong for people with the NFL.
I could probably name a player, and odds are he is on the IR.
Yeah, and we'll get to talking about that very, very shortly. First, we're going to start it off with a little show starter, and mine is the almost perfection of color rush jerseys from Thursday night. I'm talking Saints in Atlanta. The only thing that would have made this the best, is one I think I'd said to you and I said to JT, the color rush jersey for the Saints was fantastic. I love the gold helmets. You had the gold, the white shirts with the gold letter. Fantastic. Some of the best I've seen all year. If you were to make it the best night of color, you could have shut it down, never have to do it again. If Atlanta was in the early 90s black jerseys, that would have made it fantastic.
I am actually a huge fan of Color Rush, as a matter of fact, because I think NFL uniforms in general are just bland and boring, and I wish they would let them even change out the helmets for the Color Rush game, because you could have some awesome combinations. But I looked at those Saints uniforms. They were slick. Another thing that I'm starting to see in terms of Color Rush is some of the teams are starting to wear the jerseys outside of Color Rush Thursday, which I really like. I really want to.
Is it like one of those things like you have a video game, you finally unlocked the jersey, so now you can wear it whenever you want?
I really like the Lions this weekend on Saturday are going with their Color Rush grays, and the Lions have they have really nice gray uniforms. It's just fun. It makes it a little more fun.
Absolutely.
The Texans wore their Color Rush jersey this year. I like it. It's just a different type of it's just different than the standard what you're getting for 8 games and 8, and a lot of teams don't have that much variety in their uniforms, so it's very nice to see.
Right. I'm an old school person. I like when the Pats are in their blues. I like the blues and the gray pants. That's old school for me. I hate when they go to the white jerseys. I don't like when they go to. I'm not a big fan of the red jerseys. I like the old school.
I like the old school white
blue.
jerseys. The old school white jerseys from the Pats. I like those.
The Ben Coates days.
The Bledsoe jersey
Ben Coates days.
All right, I had one of those.
Stick with the NFL. Let's flip over to for your show starter.
NFL concussion protocol.
I can't imagine who you're thinking
of. Tom Savage literally had a seizure and was put back into the game. I am so sick.
Where is that miscommunication? Because O'Brien even said himself, if I had known that happened, clearly he wouldn't have gone back in the game.
No.
So where is that miscommunication?
It's with whoever is in charge of pulling the player out of the game. The NFL is supposed to have, they have their doctor, they have their certified concussion spotter who's supposed to communicate down to the refs. When that ref who was standing next to Savage as he was shaking, he should have told Savage he's not allowed to come back in. And if Savage had come back in, he should have kicked him right back out. I think we should be able to give referees a little more a little more power when it comes to identifying concussed players, or at least give the person who is in the spotter's box upstairs a little more power with that.
Where do you draw the line? Is it like as soon as someone even remotely gets hit in the head, then you have to pull them? Because the one thing that you notice a lot, and a lot of people complain about this as well, is we can go back to Thursday night. Alvin Kamara is running up. He gets hit head-to-head with another defender. You know who doesn't come off that field?
The defender.
The defender. Now, why isn't the defender coming off the field? He gets hit. He's the one doing the hitting with his head. It's just as bad as getting hit in the head with someone else. So why isn't he coming out for a concussion protocol?
Where
do you finally draw the line, or how do you keep expanding it? Anytime someone gets hit in the head,
I really wish.
I feel like we're like 10 years away from flag football. Like we're just so close to it because it's just going to be too dangerous for these guys because no one's learning. They're not taking the precautions they should be taking.
That's the thing that gets me. Is like, I understand that Tom Savage is he's playing for his life as an NFL quarterback right now because he's trying to prove to teams that he can be at least a serviceable backup. So you don't want to miss any plays at all. But when you're lying on the ground like
I don't think he knew where he was or who he was at that point.
No, he didn't. And
so you can't even. I would just throw out that whole argument about for him in that particular moment about I got to play because someone's going to take my spot because I don't think he knew where he was.
And I think you should be able to give the. I think there should be maybe a second spotter up there, maybe two spotters up there instead of the one, and they should be able to have a mic right down to the referee, and they should be able to stop the play. Like my solution would be the concussion spotter can call a timeout. Because referees can call timeouts, but the timeout doesn't count against either team. But if the concussion spotter sees what
it's
he
similar
thinks
to
is
like a replay, a touchdown replay,
in the sense of if the concussion spotter sees him come out and then sees him come back in right after play, call a timeout and make sure that he double check him on the field because he went back into the locker room after and he didn't come out and surprise, he had a concussion. And also, I just wish. It was a clean hit too. It's like it just gets back to the point that football is a violent game.
Mm-hmm. They know what they're signing up for, but there needs to be accountability from the coaching staff and the assistants and everything like that to make sure that they're not putting someone in harm's way. And that's exactly what they did with Tom Savage.
And it also goes back from the fact that, when Bill O'Brien is coaching 60-something players, he didn't have time to see that. Like, he was doing something else. Like, it's not, it does come back to the head coach, but also the head coach can't see every single little thing.
And he had come out and said, I didn't see it.
No, if he would have seen it,
I did not know that he was hit the way he was hit.
No, if Savage would have taken that hit and, if O'Brien would have seen it, he wouldn't have put him back in. But I think another thing is also the NFL has to do better at guaranteeing player money because that's why a lot of these guys will sometimes go back in is because if they don't make it next week, they're losing money.
It's definitely a trickle-down effect, and I guess we're gonna find out how all that unfolds over the next, 8 years under Mr. Goodell's hierarchy. Dictatorship. As we move on. So we've had this discussion. I had it last week with JT. We're going to go back into it because what you and I had said a couple weeks ago, and what JT and I said as well, is that we have to let the NFL season play out a little longer before we start to really label who could be the MVP of the league. Now that Wentz is hurt, he's out for the rest of the season. He's gone for 3 games, so those stats are going to stay the way they are. But the season is still there. You have Case Keenum that is still continuing to do well in Minnesota. Granted, he lost to, was it Carolina last week?
Yeah, but that's like a good loss.
Right, and that's something to keep in mind as well. But then he also isn't the main starter. That's Teddy Bridgewater's team, and Teddy Bridgewater is sitting on the bench as a should-be starter. Then you have Tom Brady that went out to Miami and pretty much had his worst game in the last 3 years.
The 2 picks.
He had 2 picks, 1 touchdown, only like 200
made Jay
yards.
Cutler look elite.
Yeah, he had 3 touchdowns and 200-something yards, something like that.
Jay Cutler's been good in primetime this year, actually.
Yeah, you take Drake off that was it Cameron Drake? You take him off that team. I think it's a different story, but because that kid he ran out of his mind, similar to what Hunt did at the beginning of the year with Kansas City. Then you have Russell Wilson. He had 3 interceptions and 3 touchdowns. And then do you start to really say, okay, maybe, in my opinion, maybe the quarterback isn't the MVP this year?
I think it's Antonio Brown.
I'm with you. I'm a little with you on that. I'm starting to see the light at this.
If
because
Antonio Brown projects out the last 3 weeks, we have what, 3 weeks left?
we have 3 weeks, and his matchups are very favorable. You have the Patriots this week. You have, I thought they were playing the Browns. You have the Houston Texans the week after that,
So
and you finish it up with the Cleveland Browns. Now, it's not to say that by that week 17, maybe he doesn't have to go out there. So maybe he doesn't have to pad those stats the way that we think he's going to.
So here's the counter argument against a guy like Antonio Brown. He doesn't even have the most touchdowns of wide receivers.
Right.
Like DeAndre Hopkins has the most touchdowns of wide receivers. But Brown has...
Where's that team? But we've always said with the quarterback, where is the team without the quarterback? Where is this team without Antonio Brown?
I think you have to see how his stats project out by the end of the season, too. Because, if he only gets like 200 yards and another touchdown...
Can we agree he's probably the most dynamic player in the NFL right now?
I mean, I think he's on that list. There's that short list of wide receivers that will make or break a quarterback on their team.
I think he's on that short list of just NFL players in general that make or break their team.
I think he's,
I don't think they have anyone that steps up into that spot.
When I think of the 15 best players in the NFL, Antonio Brown is on that list. When I think
top 15?
When I say 15, I'm taking
top 5.
I'm taking cornerbacks. I'm taking defensive end. I'm taking everybody.
Still on top. I think he's still top 5.
10. I think he's 6.
I think I can convince you. Oh, see, I'm convincing you. It's bringing it down a little bit.
I think when we throw quarterbacks into the conversation, Aaron Rodgers is, Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, there are quarterbacks that'll be a little more dynamic than Brown. But when you take out quarterbacks, he's in that top 5, obviously. I think I put him there with a guy like, what's his name? You see a guy like Bosa from San Diego, Los Angeles, who has totally turned that defense around, and you just watch tape on these guys, or Clowney when he's doing, Clowney's literally.
Or a J.J. Watt kind of player. I know what you mean. Someone that is just going to completely transform that.
And Brown is on that list. He's in that top. He's in that top 10 when you add quarterbacks. He's on that top 5 when you take quarterbacks away.
When you look at players in the NFL, and we've said this before, when it comes to like baseball and it comes to like basketball, if you're putting up ridiculous stats.
What's Brown's WAR? You got that for me?
Yeah. If you're putting out, it's got to be whatever the highest thing WAR is. Whatever WAR can be is the highest.
That trap WAR right there.
I think Brown's got it. So, but we always said if you put up ridiculous stats and you help your team win, that's kind of like our mini equation for like how we think the MVP should be decided. And Brown's up there when it comes to receptions and yards and touchdowns as well.
He's got 99. Like he's got a good
99 in receptions.
99 receptions.
And he's got 3 games left.
Yards, averaging 15.2 per catch, 9 touchdowns.
So that's what I mean. Like he's putting up the stats of one of the top wide receivers. I know there's a couple people that kind of interchange with those yards and touchdowns and stuff like that. But then you have someone like a Russell Wilson that is doing it all on the field.
He's
literally the team. He's literally the offensive team. So when you're talking about, I think Russell Wilson, one of those players that if he can get that team to the playoffs, which they have a very good shot at doing. They're 8-5.
The NFC's way too crowded.
They're 8-5, and they are right now. They would own
the 6th seed?
The 6th seed, right? I think they would have it over Atlanta right now. I'm not sure if they played each other.
I thought they beat Atlanta head to head.
In Seattle, I think, right? So they would.
No, the Falcons actually beat Seattle. So Seattle would have Atlanta would have head to head.
Right. So Atlanta right now would be that seed. So they have to keep winning. But Seattle can do that, and by putting themselves on the back of Russell Wilson, he's going to continue to put the stats up, and he's going to take his team to the playoffs. That would be, for me, on that line of MVP. But if we're talking about just a dynamic player, someone I need to turn that TV on and watch every day, throughout the year, it was Deshaun Watson for me. Because there wasn't a player
every time.
Honestly, there wasn't a player that I was like, I gotta watch.
I watched Deshaun Watson highlights when I'm sad.
I can't get enough of Antonio Brown. That guy is running the league, in my opinion.
I think he needs to have. So he's got 1,500 yards right now.
Because you've taken Aaron Rodgers off that field, and now he's coming back. I get it, but he's been gone. He's not in consideration for me. Now that you have he's off the field, you have Russell Wilson, who had one game, and granted, he doesn't have great matchups these next few weeks as well, that he might struggle as well. With Antonio Brown and the matchups he has going forward, he's got the Patriots, he's got the Texans, and he's got the Cleveland, he's just going to continue to excel.
He's got to put up 2,000 yards from the average.
What is he at, 15,
He's at 1,500 right now.
I think he can do that
He's got to put up 166 yards.
The way the Patriots defense looked last week, I mean, you could almost say that Antonio Brown might have 200 this week.
If Antonio Brown can get 3 more touchdowns and put up 2,012, I think he's in the conversation. Because when you're a wide receiver, when you're a running back,
and I don't know the last time a wide receiver won the MVP, because it's been a quarterback trophy for some time.
I'll look that up right now.
So he's someone that I think is absolutely is involved in the conversation. And if on Twitter and Facebook and everything you guys have another opinion, let us know who you think could be the MVP this year. Does Wentz have enough? Did he do enough this year to be able to string himself along to do that, to be in that conversation? Or, with Brady, he's got a couple more games, against he's got the Bills and the Jets left. Not the greatest defensive teams, at home. I think they end up at home for the last 2 games. So is that someone that he's just, he continued just to pad the stats and he'll be above that as long as he takes care of the football?
I don't know if a wide receiver has ever won MVP.
So this is what I mean. I think that you can make the case for the conversation this year because of how poor,
how diluted
the talent is on the quarterback position, because it's typically been a quarterback-driven award. So I would be okay with that. Speaking of wide receivers, the Patriots making some roster moves. They've picked up Kenny Britt, which was surprising to me, but then at the same time it wasn't.
Kenny Britt is trash. Move on.
Because went to Cleveland. I think he had a few touchdowns this year.
No, he didn't play at all this year.
Yes, he did. Yeah, he had a couple touchdowns this year in Cleveland of all places. So the fact that he was able to do that in Cleveland is somewhat.
Putting up a great stat line of 18 receptions, 233 yards, and 2 touchdowns.
2 touchdowns. What's wrong? If you catch touchdowns, what's the problem? 18 receptions?
If you can't...
If you're 2 for 18, 218 ratio is great. I'll take that.
No. If the Browns don't think enough of you as a player where they healthy scratch you, I think you are a bad player.
You think the Browns know what they're doing this year?
I mean, they signed Kenny Britt in the offseason to just be a guy who would put up, 60 catches, maybe 1,000 yards for them.
I think they thought of him as like, okay, we don't have Josh Gordon. Let's pick up this guy who's a similar stature and can put numbers up. The fact that Brady's going to have a few weeks to get prepared with Kenny Britt, it has that Malcolm Floyd comparison to last year. They pretty much, that's who they picked up last year out of Arizona.
Did Malcolm Floyd do anything last
Nope.
year?
He basically played the last couple games of the season. He played 1 playoff game, and he didn't play in the Super Bowl. But that's what I see from Kenny Britt. But here was my comparison to Malcolm Floyd, and I've yet to been able to do this. They picked him up last year. He has almost the exact same athletic build as someone of a Julio Jones. So I had to think to myself, who is Kenny Britt? What player on that NFC roster and anywhere is he very similar to? And again, I haven't had the time to be able to do that research, but that's all that keeps going through my head is, okay, what if they're getting him just to practice with him over these next 3-4 weeks to get ready for that possible big game? So that's how I see it, because that's all I saw Malcolm Floyd as last year was, okay, well, they have this big wide receiver that they can now practice with, because that's not who they had. They didn't have that kind of player on their roster. But you also have Malcolm Mitchell this year that isn't going to be coming back. So you have to fill that void in wide receiver. There's so many different options. I was just surprised to see someone from I was surprised to see Kenny Britt, but after realizing from Cleveland, that's not really surprising to me because they deal with them all the time.
By the way, it was Michael Floyd, not Malcolm Floyd.
Sorry, I have Malcolm Mitchell and Michael Floyd.
We were naming the player for the San Diego Chargers who's been out of the league for 2 years now.
Gotcha.
Anyway, I don't think Kenny Britt's going to do anything. He had one good year last year, and it was because he
it was a few years ago, actually.
No, it was last year. It was 2016. He had 68
What did he do in
receptions.
2013?
In 2013, he had 11 receptions for 96 yards.
No, it was another year that he had a better year.
Okay, these are his stats. 42,701, 42,775. His best year before
He had
last
1,000
year.
yards one year.
Yeah, last year.
Oh, was it 2000?
It was last year with the Rams because he was the only target. And a couple years before that, he had 748 yards.
With, by the way, as a quarterback.
Jared Goff.
No, Case Keenum. Jared Goff for only 2 games.
Jared Goff played more than 2 games last year.
But only with Kenny Britt.
Anyway. I think he's been... Britt is one of those guys who's done just enough to stick around in the second or third spot, but has never been good enough to actually be a starter or somebody who actually produces anything over the course of a season. So, I don't know. Maybe the Patriots will fix him, but I don't think anything's going to happen.
He's going to have to go through the gauntlet similar to what Floyd had to do last year, and I think that's why we didn't see much of Floyd. And how well he could have been. But the good part for Kenny Britt is they have him for 2 years. So they have him for this year, and then they have him for another year. So he's one of these players that could really kind of excel next year if he has the offseason to kind of play. But I agree with you. I don't think he's not going to do much at all this year. we're talking about wanting to get into NFL hopefuls. There's teams. I don't know if you're on Facebook, you're on Twitter. It's that NFL Network or ESPN where they put the thing that says mathematically eliminated from the playoffs, and you're going to see a lot more of them this week as well. Because as teams start to win or start to lose in the last few weeks, that's when their hopes and dreams are crushed.
I've come to the conclusion that after 2 straight years of playoffs, I will be able to spend my January not having to watch football, which is nice.
Why wouldn't you? Pick another team, enjoy it, join a fantasy playoff.
I'm going to bandwagon on an NFC team. I haven't decided yet between the Vikings or the Panthers, whoever I like. But, it's one of those days where... it sucks to see your team eliminated from the playoffs. But with that being said, for some teams it's better than the others. Like my team's eliminated from the playoffs because three of our best 4 players are on IR. We have a great roster coming back. I'm excited for next year. But if you're
2018 Houston Texans, you should be very excited.
But if you're the Browns, it's just kind of like, oh, here we go again.
Right.
I think they were eliminated a few weeks ago, actually.
Right, but you also, they were the first team eliminated. But you have also Indianapolis as well. I believe the Jets have been. I don't know if the Jets have been eliminated. The Broncos have been eliminated. The Giants, the Bears. I believe the Bucks have also been eliminated. The 49ers, which is really funny because you're the 49ers. You keep winning. When do you pull Jimmy G? Because that draft pick is getting higher and higher as the weeks go on because you keep winning games. This is the second game in a row he's won for them.
I don't think you pull Jimmy G. I think you're letting Jimmy G play for a contract, and the more, I think this gets kind of understanding.
But isn't it already an understanding amongst the fans that he's your quarterback of the future? You're going to sign him to a huge contract, so it's okay to pull him and keep the draft pick. We know that we're not making the playoffs. We're already eliminated. Let's just get the draft pick. As fans, come together and be like, you know what? Yes, we're going to forfeit these next 3 weeks because we want the high draft pick.
As a fan, I look at
right now they're at 3 behind Cleveland and the Giants.
I don't know. As a fan, I kind of look at this and I say, well, I want to get him 3 games of NFL reps because
that's fine. But pull an Eli Manning, pull him out halftime, put the other guy in.
I mean, you could, but I don't know. I think it's important if this guy is your quarterback of the future and you know he's your quarterback of the future, that he plays out the season and that he gets those reps with the people who are on the team right now and he builds, because you could get hot. I've seen it before. A couple years ago, the Dolphins.
But they don't have to get hot.
But it's the feeling at the end of the season. The Dolphins did it a couple years ago where they won 2 or 3 games at the end of a lost season. They came in the next year and made the playoffs after that because they were just clicking.
Yeah, they have a tough matchup, believe it or not. They go from
the Bills.
They go from the Titans.
Oh, the 49ers?
The 49ers. They go from the Titans to the Jaguars to the Rams. So I repeat, why not just pull him now?
Because
keep him healthy.
Why not get him those reps against 2 of the best teams in the league? Why don't you
I guess that does make a point of if the matchup shows you're gonna lose anyway, keep him in there and see what he can do. If he does pull off wins, again, that draft stock just goes higher and higher and not in the right direction.
I mean, if you look at their draft stock, I mean, the Buccaneers, they're not really actually in, because the Browns had that first round pick.
Right, following the Giants. The Giants and then the 49ers.
The 49ers.
Oh, and Indy, you got to put them in the mix as well.
Indy, I think the farthest you're going to fall is 6th if you win those 2 games, and they're not going to win.
That's tough. But that's tough for a franchise that's trying to start over.
But for a franchise that's starting over with a franchise quarterback, do you really care about falling from 3 to 6 in the draft if it means that your franchise quarterback gets 3 extra games to be able to play with the people?
I think it does because you're talking about top tier players, your top 5 players in the NFL that are going in the NFL. You don't have to worry about the quarterback aspect, which is nice, so you can actually focus on something else.
3 of the first 5 players going to be taken this year will be quarterbacks. So it's I think if the 49ers are sitting at 6, they're fine. They're not going to miss out on anybody. I think it's more valuable to get Jimmy G those snaps against some of the best defenses in the league and get him on the same level with some of the players he'll have coming back next year as far as wide receivers and running backs go, and just get that, just work on that chemistry for 3 games in-game. It's not preseason. And if you have to pick 6th, you have to pick 6th. But looking at their matchups, they'll probably still pick 3 or 4 because they're not going to beat the Rams and they're not going to beat the Jaguars. Well, actually, it'd be just like the Jaguars.
I agree with you about 28.3% of that. So, what about when you're talking about NFL teams that are trying to get into the playoffs. When we're talking about hopefuls and the dreams of making the playoffs. I mean, there's a lot of teams that nothing's set in stone right now. Your top teams in the AFC, you pretty much kind of know where it's going to go. You think New England has to win one game, they clinch the AFC East. The Pittsburgh's already clinched the AFC North, and Jacksonville is I think a win away from doing the same thing in AFC South. So in AFC West, it's just a crapshoot amongst the top three teams between the Chargers, the Raiders, and the Chiefs. So looking at those four divisions, the Bills still trying to get in, Baltimore still trying to get in, Tennessee still trying to get, or even try and win the AFC South, and then you have in the AFC West, like three teams are going at. So what teams in the AFC are we looking at that are really hoping? Which one do you see being able to overcome adversity the last 3 weeks and make their dream come true?
There is just something, I don't know. Is Tyrod Taylor still out for the Bills?
No, he's right now. He's one of those. He's practicing, but he could be scratched type of thing.
My heart would like to see the Bills make it just because they haven't made the playoffs in a while.
They have the longest running team without the
Cleveland.
The Cleveland Browns have made it to the playoffs since the Bills have.
Plus, have you ever seen Buffalo fan tailgates? These are the best fans. They put each other through tables.
Now let's take that back a little bit. They're not going to be tailgating anywhere.
No, because
they're going away. Wherever they are, they're going away.
It would be nice to see them make the playoffs.
Knowing them, they're going to have to go to like L.A.
But just knowing them, knowing like Bills Mafia and how hard that these people still show up. These people are showing up to December games where it is 0 degrees and you can't even see the field, and they're still almost packing the stadium. Like, it would just be nice for the NFL to see the Bills. Even if they sneak into that 6 hole and, play the Jaguars that first week and just get crushed.
That's a different division.
It would still be
That's a different conference.
I mean, Jaguars and Bills?
The Jaguars? Sorry. No, I'm looking at the other thing. Sorry.
But it would just be a nice story for the NFL to just say the Bills made the playoffs. I think realistically speaking, I think the Ravens have a chance. I think the Ravens will be the favorite because they've been there before. Act like you've been there before. Long shot, but I could see it happening, especially if they win this week.
Ravens have the Browns this week, and then followed by, and I can't find them on the other week. Oh, and they have Indianapolis next week. So, yeah, and then the Bengals the week after that. So their schedule is very favorable.
I think the Ravens have the best schedule. Dolphins have an outside chance.
Yeah.
The Dolphins are one of those teams.
I really think you need to look at Monday like a mirage. It's not what you really thought you saw.
Here's the thing: the Dolphins are like 4-0 against teams that are above 500, and are like 2-5 against teams that are below 500. They play up to their competition or down to their competition. So, I would say my heart wants the Bills. My mind thinks the Ravens are getting that 6th spot. And outside shot, I think the Dolphins have an outside shot. I don't think
Dolphins have the Bills twice, followed by Kansas City in between.
Like, they win those games out, they would be able to knock the Chiefs out.
They knocked the Chiefs down a level, and they basically flip-flop with Buffalo.
They could take 2 teams out, pretty much, at this point. And I don't think the AFC South is... Oh, not the AFC South. I think the AFC South is putting 2 teams into the playoffs this year. Because finally the 2 teams...
So by your logic, with the AFC South putting 2 teams in there, then the AFC East, then it's a crapshoot between the Chargers and the Chiefs, and you believe the Chargers will prevail there.
I like the Chargers more.
You like the Jacksonville and Tennessee, and you like Pittsburgh and Baltimore, and then you like New England.
Right, and I would love to see Baltimore be switched out for the Bills.
So let's flip over to the NFC. Again, this is a little more complex for the sake of there's a lot of teams that are 1-2, 1-2, or everyone has similar records as well. Philadelphia has already clinched the NFC East. The Dallas Cowboys are kind of...
How about them Cowboys?
How about them Cowboys? They're getting Zeke back next week.
Are they?
Hell yeah, week 16, 17. So that's one of those things where you got to remember that if they can just get past this week, and they're playing the Oakland Raiders that have been, again, they're injury prone. They're not doing as well as people thought they would down the stretch or throughout the year. You have them playing, they're going to have Zeke back against Seattle for week 16, and then Philadelphia, and an NFC East rivalry, but that team's going to be resting players that final week. They're 11-2. If they win this week and next week, they don't have to play anybody. They're not going to give away the number 1 spot. You have the Minnesota Vikings But you have Detroit and then Green Bay. You have the Aaron Rodgers is back for Green Bay, and as much as he says he's not here to revive the season for Green Bay, that's exactly what he's here to do. The Saints and Carolina at 9-4, and then Atlanta 8-5. There's a lot more interesting things going on in the NFC than are in the AFC, as opposed to because of records. Then you have the Rams at 9-4, Seattle just behind them at 8-5.
Well, in the NFC this year,
and then you have teams again like San Francisco and. You have Green Bay. You can even say Green Bay. Chicago showed up last week. The Redskins, I mean, these are teams that can play spoiler. And if Dallas is at 7-6 and maybe doesn't have a chance, they can play a major spoiler the last few weeks of the season.
I mean, you look at the NFC playoff picture, and this is a year where you have 7 teams for 6 slots, and then if you count 8 or 9, you have, Matt Stafford and Aaron Rodgers in those 8-9 holes. Mm-hmm. So there's going to be a lot of good football down the stretch in the NFC South, and there will be a good team that is left out this year.
I think that has to do with they're getting their players back, their players back from injury just too late. Because I put Green Bay in that as well. Like Green Bay has the Panthers this week, so yes, it's Aaron Rodgers, but the Panthers are playing really well lately. So if you're gonna try and play spoiler, you got to go out there and ball right off the start, right off the bench. And that's asking. I know he's Aaron Rodgers, but that seems to be asking a lot from any player, especially when you're trying to, again, play spoiler or get yourselves into the playoffs. And then Green Bay next week at home against Minnesota. So it's like they don't have that. That's not a weak schedule. That's two top-tier teams that you have to go through in order to get there. So again, it's Aaron Rodgers, but are there any other teams that you really see that could really make an impact in the NFC as we come down to the playoffs?
Impact in the NFC-wise, I don't know. I really think.
Or is the competition just too tight?
It's just too tight. After those 9 slots, maybe you switch out the Lions with the Cowboys for that 9th slot, but it's just really too tight. The NFC South is going to have a good team, a team that is either 9-7 or 10-6 that gets left out this year. That's just how good it is in the. Well, actually, the NFC South might not have a team get left out. It might be the NFC.
Are they going to be like? It's going to be the AFC, right? It's going to be that we have 3 teams out of the South. Any of those 3 teams, I know Atlanta's kind of been back and forth, but they're 8-5. That is an extreme. This is a team. This is a division we used to make fun of because they were just so bad. And in the last couple years, they're the teams to fear. You have the Saints that aren't relying on Drew Brees to throw 5,000 yards this year. I don't think he's going to come close to 5,000 yards this year because of the running game between Kamara and Ingram.
I think, well, it depends. Does Kamara come back?
Yep, he's back.
So Kamara is back from his concussion.
Correct.
So in that case, I think Kamara does have a chance. I'm looking up some stats right now of the NFC playoff races.
We're going to bounce to baseball soon. So
we're going to bounce to baseball? Okay. I don't know. I think the Panthers should be able to make the playoffs out of that division, too. I think the Panthers and the the Saints make the playoffs out of the AFC
both
South.
of them are 9-4 right now.
And I think the Falcons might be that team that misses that should make it.
The Saints, they have the Jets this week, and then they have the Falcons the following week. So, I mean, that's a team that they have a very easy game this week at home against the Jets, and then they have to go. Then they're home again next week against them as well, against Atlanta. So, and then they're at Tampa Bay. So they have a somewhat favorable schedule. So, I mean, that's a team that is like, okay, let's lock. In my mind, I'm like, okay, I'm locking up New Orleans. They're your number 1 seed. I don't think Carolina's going to be able to run the table if the Saints have somewhat of an easy schedule.
It depends. A lot of football to be played. It's been a weird year for football.
Right.
Too.
It's one of those things you really can't decide until the last couple of weeks. I mean, there have been so many years as a Patriots fan where by week 15, 16, you just sit back and you're like, okay, we got the number 1 seed. We have home field advantage. No big deal. Or we're fighting for home field advantage. No big deal. So now this year, it's just a lot tougher. And I love the matchup this week against the Pats and Steelers, and we'll get into it in our NFL picks. But I want to get into baseball a little bit because there's been a major shakeup in baseball. You can roll your eyes all you want, Dustin. This almost made me sick to my stomach when it happened.
It didn't make me sick to my stomach. It made me mad.
You have Mike Stanton, who's now playing in New York. He had to change his name because he's now just a regular guy in New York playing for the historic franchise.
Oh, that was awful.
I'm not a big fan. I'm calling him Mike. He's Mike to me. That's what he is. I love the team. The T-Mobile commercials had me laughing like crazy when they called him Mike Drop.
Awful.
That's a great nickname. So you have Stanton, Judge, Sanchez in New York. You have the MLB equivalent of the Bash Brothers from the Mighty Ducks. It's this team should put up numbers like no team has that we've seen in our lifetime.
Nah.
No? Okay,
No,
give me your take, man.
no.
Throw it at me.
My take is, and I want to
Wake up! Drink your coffee. Come on.
Couldn't afford a coffee this morning.
Sad face.
Carlo Stanton's stats.
All you have to know, Dustin, is he was the MVP last year, and he almost hit 60 home runs.
He was the MVP last year. And now tell me.
He almost hit 60 home runs.
Tell me, how many years has Giancarlo Stanton played a full season?
I don't know. That's what I want to... Go on. I know he's very injury prone.
Literally, just last year, he played 159 games.
Fantastic.
That's the most games he's ever played. The last 3 years, 145, 74, 119, 159.
What's wrong with 145?
I mean, that
was his first year, or is that the years going backwards?
That was 2014.
Okay.
So his first year, he played 100. I just don't want... You play...
But here's the best part, Dustin. He's playing in the American League now. Hey, I need a day off. Well, how about we just have you DH? Then you just have to hit. You don't have to do anything else.
Look,
Mr. Mike, you just go up there, swing 4 times in the game. You know what? Just try and hit the triple deck. That's all you have to do. Don't go crazy. Just go out there 4 times a game and hit. You don't have to play the field anymore. Take a rest, relax. We're going to see that a lot more than I think people think it's going to be.
Just because you hit 48 home runs doesn't mean they're going to win 40 games. But
you also have your MVP. I believe he was the MVP of the American League. And
Altuve got MVP.
Oh, Altuve, sorry. But you have your Rookie of the Year in Aaron Judge, who also hit upwards of 40-something home runs.
Who is also due for a sophomore slump.
But, okay, you can't just say he's due for the He did play technically 2 years ago.
But
it wasn't enough to count, but he did technically play 2 years ago. And I agree with you that he's in for a sophomore slump. But what is a sophomore slump for Aaron Judge? I don't have his stats, but he's got to have 300 strikeouts, and he's going to hit a sophomore slump because he had over 200 this year. So how many strikeouts and home runs did he have last year?
He had 208 strikeouts.
Okay, and then how many home runs did he have?
52 home runs.
Okay, so if he still hits 50-something home runs and he strikes out 200-something, 300-something times, I mean, if he would have to strike out, in my opinion, 300 times for me to consider it a sophomore slump.
I would also like to point out that
if he still does 40 home runs,
in the 27 games that he played in 2016, he had 42 strikeouts, which is almost 2 strikeouts a game.
Right.
So here's the thing about Judge and Stan. They're going to be very good power hitters, and if they can stay healthy, that's great. What about pitching? Who has won the World?
Who cares if you're putting 12 runs up a game?
It's not going to matter because once you get to the World Series, you're not going to be able to put up 12 runs a game. How did the Astros win the World Series this year? Pitching and getting
the Astros didn't have
didn't
have 2 guys that hit over 50 home runs in a year. In the fall, and not even we're not talking 4 years down the line. We're talking literally last year. A couple months ago, these guys had finished the season with over 50 home runs each.
That's great.
And now they're joining forces on the same team. And then, there's a catcher that they have as well that also hits home runs, who actually took out Stanton in the home run derby in the first round in front of his home crowd.
That said catcher also missed a critical tag in the ALCS.
I'm not talking about a tag, I'm talking about what he's doing at the plate.
Yeah, that's great. He can hit 100 home runs.
That would be very impressive.
If he needs to tag
That would be very impressive.
If it's game 6 of the ALCS and he needs to tag somebody out and he drops the ball and you lose the game, the 50 home runs don't matter.
You don't have to worry because his other 2 teammates are going to hit 2 grand slams anyway.
You're hitting home runs if you can't play defense.
This is
pitching and defense wins.
I think you're really underestimating what these 3 guys are going to be able to do. They're going to see so many fastballs and they're going to get on base so much.
Yeah,
because of just who they are and the players they are.
In the regular season, you can get in the middle of July, in the middle of August, when it's nice and hot outside and that ball is traveling through the air like crazy, you can get away with a strict power lineup. But when it comes to October and that ball is not flying as far as anymore and the weather is crappy, you need to have pitching and
So what you're saying is the Yankees need to kind of hold back a little bit, give Houston the number 1 spot in the American League, so that they have to go play more games down in Houston where it's warmer in October.
That might actually be a good strategy. Actually, it's a crazy strategy, but it might be a good. But I'm not going to say, yep, the Yankees are winning the World Series. Let's shut it down right here. The Astros the Astros had one of the best farm systems. They still have a super deep farm system after winning the World Series last year, and they have, in my opinion, the best returning pitching in the AL. The Red Sox still have Chris Sale, and if the pitching staff of the Red Sox can figure it out, which is a question we ask ourselves every single year, sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. The pitchers in the Red Sox rotation, yeah, they could shut down Judge and Stanton for a couple of games. There is
19 games?
I think if they can shut them down for 12 to 13 games and then get to the postseason, I get that Stanton is the NL MVP, and I get that he hits a bunch of home runs. I get that Judge hits a bunch of home runs. But home runs, when was the last time a team that had relied on the home run ball won the World Series? It always comes down to these teams that have maybe one or two guys that can hit timely hits that have pitching. It always comes down to pitching and defense, pitching and defense, pitching and defense. And then, in the case of the Cubs a couple of years ago, they had those guys who could get those clutch hits and could get a home run every now and then. It's not about spots 1, 2, and 3, or
I
2, 3, 4.
I feel like the World Series was nothing but a home run derby at times. It was just that's how runs were scored. So
but they were being hit by guys that were not known to be hitting home runs.
But it's still home runs.
It is, but at the end of the day, what did the Astros?
You're not playing small ball. You're trying to pitch your butt off, but you're still hitting home runs. So
it came down to people shutting down lineups, and it's just pitching. You have to have good pitching. I don't believe in the Yankees pitching. Sure, I think they can win 20 to 18 shootouts when it comes to those hits, but you get to the postseason, you get to October to 15th, and you have to face a Chris Sale who's on fire. Stanton can strike out 4 times a game. Well, not Stanton. Judge would strike out 4 times a game. We've seen it. What happens if Judge strikes out 4 times? The catcher strikes out 4 times, and Stanton goes 2 for 4 and hits 2 home runs. You still only score 2 runs. You have to have good pitching and defense. The Yankees are going to get all the talk. The Yankees are going to get all the hype. They're going to make the playoffs, and they have a chance to go deep. Do I think they're going to win the World Series? No, because the Dodgers are still good. The Astros are still good. The Angels just picked up that guy from Japan who can hit and pitch. So, checkmate Stanton. He can pitch too. There are bunches of teams that are still going to be good that the Yankees have to get through, and I think at the end of the day, you can't just power your way through those teams.
Hey, that's your take. I think that this team is going to be up. Like I said, it made me sick. If they can, the best part about them is, and we kind of said this for basketball too, if one guy's not hot, the other guy has a chance to do the same thing, and I think that's what you're going to get with Judge and Stanton. Now, when they're hot at the same time, that's when they're going to be at their scariest.
And that's great. They're going to have to face the Red Sox have 3 Cy Young winners in their rotation. So, who knows? Maybe Price and Purcell will get it together this year. There's always that chance, too. I just saw everybody with the take of, the Yankees are going to be so good. Yeah, they're going to be good, but I haven't seen a team that has to rely on the long ball. Now, if the Yankees got one
of the Red Sox are kind of the team that's the opposite. They're the team that doesn't rely on the long ball. But they didn't make it to the ALCS.
I think the Yankees had the benefit of the doubt in the sense of, nobody had seen Judge before. And as you looked at the end of the season, after the All-Star break.
After an entire year, Dustin, you've seen the player.
Well, and the Yankees lost in, 7 games to the Astros?
Right.
But I get
and the only reason the Astros won that whole thing is because they picked up Verlander.
Pitching. They picked up pitching. If the Yankees go out and get the best pitcher on the free agent market, then I'm a little scared. But until they do that, who is in the Yankees rotation right now? Who do they have that's throwing that ball out? They're going to have to win shootouts.
Right now, I think it's still Tanaka and CeCe.
You tell me that Verlander...
Pineda's gone.
Verlander can come out in the postseason, throw 7 shutout innings, turn it over to the, or throw 7 2-run innings or something. Great. You're no longer in a shootout. Now you have to rely on your pitching down the stretch. In game 180 of the season, when you're in the postseason, your power hitters are going to be tired. It takes a lot to hit a ball outside of the
and that's why they picked up someone like Aaron Boone that has been there quite recently that can maybe manage these players a little more, make sure that they're not exhausted by time October comes around. Because that's not something that Girardi was able to do come the postseason or come the end of the season, where his players are pretty much exhausted.
I'm not gonna buy the hype until I see what the other teams do, because we still have a lot of hot stuff going on. The Angels are looking to reload. Machado might be moving from the Orioles. You don't know where he'll go.
To possibly the Yankees.
He might move the Yankees. He might move to the Red Sox. It doesn't matter. Like, you look at, there's still a lot of hot stove left.
I'm very excited on the Red Sox side. I'm optimistic because they haven't given away the pieces, the big pieces yet, and that's what I appreciate. I like that they're keeping right now. They kind of have turned down every offer they've had to break up that outfield, because I think we've said on multiple occasions that outfield is something I want to see continue for the next couple of years.
If it comes down to let's say it comes down to a 1-game playoff between the Red Sox and the Yankees for that playoff spot, I'm going to trust the 3 Cy Young winners before I trust the guys who are known for striking out a lot and hitting for power. Mm-hmm. Because
that's your take.
That's what fine. I've seen. That's historically pitching wins. Pitching wins.
All right, so let's bring it back to Franklin County. Let's go with our home field advantage. Doing a little bit of a shameless plug for us here at Northwest Access TV. We're going to be going live from Richford tomorrow for the girls basketball game against Enosburg. So 2 local teams facing off against each other. We're going to be going live from that. I'm not sure who's on the mic right now, but we're going to be working on that. So we'll be going live again on Facebook, Northwest Access TV on Facebook, live for the Richford Enosburg game. So if you don't feel like, warming up the car and heading out to Richford, you can watch it from the comfort of your own home, on your mobile device, on your television, wherever you'd like to stream it to. So again, on Facebook.
You doing Mike for that game, Paul?
I'm not going up to Richford for that game, unfortunately. And then Dustin will be on the mic for a non-live game on Saturday for MVU. I believe it's boys basketball.
Boys, yeah, it should be a fun game.
And we've got a bunch of games next week. I think we're planning to go live on Monday for BFA's first game at home for the boys as well, and the girls next week sometime. So basketball season ramping up, hockey season, we've got some things in the works to bring you some possible live hockey games this year on Facebook. So again, things are happening. Winter sports here at Northwest Access TV, always a busy time. So
we talk about being on the mic tonight. Actually, down outside of Franklin County, Milton boys have their first home basketball game. I do PA for them. I'm very excited for winter sports to be back. A lot of fun these next couple of months. It really helps you get through the winter, too, in this state, the slog of winter in this state.
If you don't ski or snowboard or ice skate, you need a little something to kind of get you through these cold winter months. And for me, that's winter sports.
That's what we got.
I like it. We got some great rivalries. BFA is actually heading up and hosting Enosburg this year for the first time.
That'll be fun.
So that's going to be a lot of fun. That Franklin County, Franklin County rivalries that are.
It's always better when teams play each other here because 1, we don't have to travel, and 2, we get more content, and 3, it just means a little more, Yeah. BFA playing Virgins means pretty much nothing. BFA playing, Brattleboro means BFA playing Enosburg. That's a fun game. That's a county game right there.
Exactly, and that's what we like to see here. So let's go to our NFL picks with our remaining minutes here. After last week, Dustin is just ahead of JT.
With the asterisk, though.
With an asterisk. They're both at 59% on the year, so we can always say that, too. I could take out those first 2 weeks, and then we could decide what JT was.
Could you take out my worst 2 weeks?
Take out everyone's worst 2 weeks. That's actually an interesting. That is like a playoff thing that people do, or a fantasy thing that people do, where they say like, okay, let's take out your worst week, and then that's what we'll go with. It's kind of like in finals. So you come down to the end of the
Take out my worst 2 weeks.
Take out my worst 2.
JT got a 0 for those 2 weeks.
My worst 2 tests, and now that's my grade. So here's my curve.
If you give JT a straight 0 for 2 weeks, his average comes way down.
Right. Yeah, we could definitely do that. I think do we give him an 8 and 8 for each week or something like that?
I thought we just gave him.
I can't remember what it was.
We're gonna go find the tape.
I'll have to go back and check it out. So season totals, I'm ahead by 10 games on both of you guys, followed by Bryce, who joined us midway during the season. But we're going by percentage. He's at 68%, a major drop off from what he was last week at 72, considering. So this week we have. An early Christmas present from everyone. You have a Thursday night game, you have Saturday games, you have Sunday games, you have Monday games.
We got Color Rush Thursday.
It really needed to be a Friday game somewhere in there. We can just take over for 5 days.
We got Blue versus Orange Color Rush.
So are they going late 90s Denver Orange for us today?
I have no idea. I'm not watching.
Elway Orange? You're not watching?
I'm not watching.
Yeah,
Star Wars opens up tonight.
It does open up tonight. Are you going?
The Broncos are I am going to a 10:30 T-Rex showing, so I am going to be very tired tomorrow morning because I am putting my body through it. But whatever. Broncos, Colts, nobody's going to watch this game. I'm going to pick the Broncos because every time I pick the Colts, they've let me down, which means the Colts are winning this game. So go Broncos.
Yeah, I think Broncos get a break this week. They don't have to play in freezing cold Denver. They get to go to Indianapolis and enjoy the nice indoor weather.
I wouldn't be
and
shocked if
relax.
Jacoby Brissett went off for 300 yards tonight.
I think
though.
we're
could see it
still waiting
happening.
for Jacoby Brissett to go off. It's yet to happen this year.
I think he's a backup quarterback.
He is a backup quarterback that we got Philip Dorsett for the New England Patriots and has done practically nothing this year.
was
And
gonna
I
say,
believe he's not even on the active. I don't think he's on the active
Dorsett
roster.
played at all?
Yeah, he has played, but he's just not really playing.
He's trash.
So Saturday, a nice little treat. Saturday, no bowl games to watch for college football. We're waiting for the playoffs to begin for that. Chicago at Detroit, and as Chicago came and they showed off a little magic last week.
That's cute. Detroit's winning this game.
Detroit.
Like Chicago, John Fox needs to be fired. The only reason Chicago looked good last week
They
was
beat the Bengals.
They
And
were
we all
playing-
picked the Bengals to win.
They were playing a team that somehow has a coach that needs to be fired more. I don't know how that's like. No, the Bengals have just given up on this year.
So I think with Stafford, another week to let that hand heal. He'll be back to his former self, especially at home in Detroit. Again, indoors, just kind of enjoying the
I thought
weather.
they won last week.
I didn't think they won last week. No, they lost last week.
Who'd they play?
You're going to make me do this, aren't you? Tampa Bay.
No, they won last week.
Did they win last week?
Yeah.
Oh, then I flipped that one. That's my bad.
No, I thought. Yeah, they won 24-21.
Oh, okay. I shut that game off early then.
Oh, yeah, no. You turned that game on to begin with?
Yeah, no kidding. Well, red zone, it goes back and forth.
sure.
All right, so I'll have to flip those around. So actually, that means that you're gonna have an extra pick for the next week, an extra win then, because you had Detroit winning that game.
Yes, I did.
So I'm going with Detroit again this week. Los Angeles at Kansas City.
Go Charge, go. I
know-
love San Diego. I mean, Los Angeles.
I know,
mean,
and you know
San
that I love
Diego.
to do this to you. Give me a reason why Kansas City could win this game.
I mean, Kansas City should win this game. Kansas City is the better team. They've just have gone down the toilet the last couple of weeks. You know, everything that they did, you have a case of two teams, one, the Chargers lost.
They went on a 5-game or 6-game losing streak.
Like, they lost to the Jets. How do you lose to the Jets? I don't know what Kansas City team's going to show up. Is the first 5 week of the year Kansas City team going to show up, or the Kansas City team that's shown up recently going to show up? Who shows up? I like the Chargers more. The Chargers are playing with a chip on their shoulder right now. They're winning games. Phillip Rivers is throwing straight fire at this moment, and I think they got a chance to go into Arrowhead and get that win. Chargers win this game, they will make the playoffs.
Yeah, I'm with you as well. I think the Chargers will win, and Bryce picked them as well.
And I think, the Chargers remind me a couple of years ago of that Ravens team that just got really hot at the end of the year and just played their way into the playoffs and play. The Chargers have been in every game as a playoff game mode since like week 6, and it's just going well for them. They're 7-6 now. We were talking about the Chargers being in the running for the first overall pick at the beginning of the year.
Absolutely.
They're playing great football. Bosa, I love Joey Bosa. Joey Bosa is really good on that.
He's just one of those
defense.
players that just seems to be on every single tackle. You have Miami that has to trek their way up to Buffalo this week. In Buffalo, as we all saw it, I honestly thought it was one of the it was so hard for me to watch that game. I hated it. I absolutely hated it. I think I'm maybe the only one that actually hated watching this game. I know that Twitter was blowing up saying how much everyone loved it, and the NFL experts were saying they loved it, and I'm sitting there going, I've been in this situation before. I've played flag football in this kind of weather. It sucks. I'm cold. I don't like playing it.
It sucks for the players.
Nobody can move. It's just dumb. No one can throw. You can't run, except for LaShawn McCoy that apparently has ice skates on. I hated watching it. But now you have Miami coming up. They have the momentum coming off that huge win against the Patriots, in Buffalo, squeaking by in Buffalo against Indianapolis.
No one circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills. I'm picking the Bills this week. I want them to be my feel-good story. I'm still on the Tyrod Taylor hates his front office, so he's going to drag the Bills to the playoffs out of spite tour. I would love to see it because then they would have to, cut him or pay him.
Aaron Rodgers coming back against Carolina this week. Carolina they're on a streak of their own.
This is probably the hardest game to pick this week because conventional wisdom says Aaron Rodgers is going to come out and throw for 400 yards.
You just say it's like you don't bet against Aaron Rodgers.
Don't pick against Rodgers. You don't pick against Rodgers.
I'm doing it anyway because I think Carolina has the upper hand here.
Man, I don't know.
As a big Carolina fan you are, I'm surprised you haven't picked this sooner.
I mean, I love the Panthers. I'm on the Panthers hype wagon, but
Dustin next to Green Bay.
I'm not gonna go against Aaron Rodgers. I'm
Dustin
picking
for Green Bay.
Rodgers.
Baltimore at Cleveland. I'll just put you. Do you want to just pick
Factory
Cleveland
of
for fun?
Sadness is gonna get more sadder.
Houston at Jacksonville, the new Factory of Sadness.
I mean, we're gonna be better next year. I'm picking the Jags.
Yeah,
I'm obviously picking the Jags.
Cincinnati at Minnesota.
Minnesota.
Yeah, New York. Some of these I'm not even going to add. Jets at New Orleans. Josh McCown. He's out. He's done for the season. Your magic man of the season.
My tank commander.
Tank commander who won 4 games this year.
He
5
won
games this year.
5 games. This
Yeah.
year,
So
actually.
tank commander.
Tank commander who almost tanked so hard the Jets almost made the playoffs.
No, it was kind of scary for a little while.
The Jets were the best team. Let's just let this sink in right now. Even
After
if
like
the
week
Jets
4,
lose out,
was it after week 4 the Jets
they're
were
the best team in the New York City area. That is sad.
New Jersey area.
I will say I give a lot of credit to Todd Bowles. He's done a great job coaching that team up, and I think
And also not making any expression at all.
I think if Todd Bowles gets fired this year, he needs to get a chance to be a head coach again because he's proven that he can take literally one of the worst rosters in the league and somehow limp them to 5 wins. Good on him. I'm taking the Saints.
I think it's more on McCown than it is on Bowles, but that's just me. Philadelphia at the Giants. A Wentzless Eagles, but Nick Foles is still a good quarterback.
Foles is one of the better backup quarterbacks in the league. I'll take the Eagles.
Yeah. Arizona at Washington. This is one of those toss-ups. They're not terrible teams, but they're also they're super middle of the pack.
The R words have nothing to play for. Go Cardinals.
The R words. Did you see that there's a massive online troll that said that the Redskins had switched their names to the Red Hawks?
I actually would like that because somebody did
the rendering's not bad.
The renderings are actually really cool, and the Redskins could do it for a very low cost, and they would make everybody happy. I think they should. Anyway.
Okay. Rams at Seattle. Battle of the NFC West. Yeah, no kidding.
I don't know who to pick because last time the Rams lost this game, but I just don't trust Seattle because their secondary is just not in good shape.
Right, but also Jared Goff's not out there throwing 300, 350 yards a game either.
I'm just not going to bet. Russell Wilson's in that territory where you don't really pick against him. Okay. And I'm going to not pick against him.
I'm going with the Rams. Big game for I think this week. Patriots at Steelers.
Oh, Patriots are coming out and winning big.
I have said
Patriots own the Steelers.
So I did. I love this stat that WEI put out. They said Brady's done. He can't do anymore. He's out. Everything. And then they said, yeah, but Brady just doesn't lose to the Steelers. So here's his stats. This is mind blowing to me. This is his stat. The last 10 games against Pittsburgh. This is going back to 2007. 10 games. Brady he's completed 72% of his passes. And think about, other than Randy Moss and Wes Welker, who else has this guy had that's clutch like that? Besides, you had Gronkowski the second half of those 10 years. 72% of his passes, over 2,000 yards, 22 touchdowns, and how many interceptions, Dustin?
2, 3.
A big old goose egg. He hasn't thrown an interception to Pittsburgh in 10 years. Yeah. I think the Pats come out. What they showed last week was nothing. They had healthy scratches. They showed nothing against Miami. Miami was able to just go completely off with Drake. I think they're going to come out and punch Pittsburgh right in the mouth. This is the
Patriots just lost revenge game.
Absolutely.
Against a team that they own. They're winning big. They're winning by 20.
I don't think it's even close. I think
it's 21.
I think this is going to be a heck of a game. We're coming down to the last minute. We'll run through these real quick. We both got the
Cowboys,
Pats going
Falcons.
in that one. So you're going to have
Cowboys and Falcons.
And then Tennessee and San Francisco.
I got Tennessee.
Cowboys and Falcons, and you've got Tennessee over the 49ers. I'm still riding that Jimmy G train.
Tennessee.
There's nothing wrong with the Jimmy G
Tennessee.
train. I love it. Looking forward to this week. Again, you get 4 days of football instead of just 3. Starting with night with I don't know. I think you still just get 3 days. I guess you get 3 days of football. We get Saturday. It's going to have some great games Saturday night. That's going to do it for us on Huddle Up. We'll be back next week with maybe a special Christmas edition of Huddle Up leading up to the holidays. For those everyone, some on my side of the family, happy Hanukkah. Dustin to my right, I'm Paul, JT, and maybe Bryce will be back sometime.
Maybe Bryce.
We need
we'll
be back next week with another edition of Huddle Up here on Northwest Access TV.